Welcome back to the Better by Nature podcast, where we're talking with folks who have inspiring stories of overcoming adversity by relying on natural remedies. On this episode, I'm talking with Will Nitze, founder and CEO of IQBAR. Will's previous struggles with how he felt physically and mentally on a daily basis eventually led him to not only solving his own problems with these natural remedies, but now he's helping many others solve their problems with those same natural remedies. Before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Life Leaf Remedies. At Life Leaf Remedies, we are passionate about making natural remedies that help you feel better today. If you're passionate about natural remedies to take better care of yourself and your loved ones, then check us out at lifeleafremedies.com today. Now, I hope you'll enjoy this episode of the Better by Nature podcast and feel better today, y'all. Welcome back to the Better by Nature podcast, where we are talking to folks who have solved and overcome adversity with natural remedies. We're joined today by Will Nitze. He's the founder and CEO of IQBAR. Certainly let you get into to IQBAR and some of the stuff you guys got going on, and you know, obviously the story behind that company and your passion project. But sir, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sir, like that. Strong. Sure. My name's Will Nitze. Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of IQBAR. Started it out of my apartment 5-ish years ago, coming up on 5 years ago. And we're in about 8,000 locations, pretty big on Amazon and our website, which is eatiqbar.com. And yeah, happy to start wherever you'd like.
Cool, man. Well, so as I understand it, and you know, kind of the story that you've put out there behind the company on your website is that you were a student at Harvard, correct?
Yes.
And you were just struggling with different issues, not feeling right, not feeling up to par. I mean, what were some of the things that you were struggling with that led you to try to solve these problems?
Yeah, I mean, I just felt bad physically and mentally on a daily basis. I graduated in 2014, and then I went right into this software gig where I was selling and marketing software, and it's kind of an internal consulting role. And I was just working super long hours, and I was also, new, and it was my first job. I was trying to prove myself and rapidly acquire new skills and all that. And I just started feeling terrible on a daily basis. And part of it was like, the work thing, working a lot, but and also the usual suspects of sleep, exercise, etc. But nutrition was really the big thing I found. And I had a standard American diet. I ate a ton of carbs, and yeah, I that took me down a rabbit hole where I just became obsessed with nutrition because I started changing my own diet and then seeing the benefits of that. And then that got me more and more down that rabbit hole of how does the food you eat impact the way you think today? And even like, how does what you eat over decades of time impact how your brain works when you're 60 or whatever? And so I read one book that really changed everything for me was Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. And that was just blew my mind. And then, yeah, I read everything by Gary Taubes. I read Dave Asprey, the Bulletproof Coffee Guy stuff. I mean, I would read anything that centered on or covered the intersection of nutrition and cognition, like I consumed. So that was the genesis of my interest in the field.
The spark to the fire, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So, what you took in a lot of information. What was it that you actually experienced that was like, wait, this is working? Like, because I can't tell you how many people I hear are doing this diet, that diet. We're trying this thing, that thing, and most of them are not sustainable. Most of them are probably not even working. What was it like, and how long did it take? Was this something that took like weeks and months before you actually noticed a difference, or was this something changed and felt the changes quickly?
I honestly, so there's like uh, there's two things that can make you feel better. Not like stopping eating bad things is one, and then eating good things is another. I think the stopping eating bad things has a bigger, more emphatic impact. The eating good things is super impactful as well, but I mean the impact's immediate too. Like if you just don't eat pizza or a sub or whatever for like lunch, and that impact is immediate. Your blood sugar doesn't spike, your insulin production doesn't skyrocket. Um, you're not lethargic. Like it's super immediate. um, and then over time too, you lose weight if that's a goal of yours. Um, a whole host of other things, good things happen. Um, so it was pretty darn quick, but yeah, it was. You asked what specifically it was. I mean, it was really like fairly basic. It was cutting out bread, pasta, rice for the most part, things like that. Although I would still, I never got super intense about it. I've actually never done like fully done keto. Um, I've really stuck more to just general low carb, low sugar. Um, because I don't like to get too like militant about diet. I find it
Right.
there's like a diminishing return where it's like you get less healthy psychologically because you're just I don't want to spend two hours a day thinking about and like journaling about my diet. Like you know what I mean? It's so um, just cutting that stuff out was huge, and then eating higher fat stuff, um, the classic like avocados, eating a lot of protein, um, and then just yeah, like high fiber vegetables. Get your carbs from vegetables. Try to have them be high fiber, and that's it. Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But the reason why I was interested in starting a ready to eat solution is I was so damn busy. Like I didn't have. May
Yeah.
sound weird, it may not, but I don't like cooking. Like I'm not a foodie. I don't enjoy cooking. Um, I view food as a tool and nutrition as a tool. Like it's a tool. It's you put it in your body and you get something out. Like how do you put
Right.
in the best? How do you put in things that you get that generate the best out result? And how do you do it fast? Like the
Yeah.
convenience factor is key. And so that those variables are why I was interested in creating a more complete and a more convenient solution.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that there's a ton of people who can relate to that. I mean, personally, I can. I was, it was actually around 2014 that I was working in Chicago and feeling similar, right? I was going through trying so many different things, and I never really considered diet as a big part of that. Figured kind of like you. I figured like, man, it's just fuel. Like whatever, as long as I'm burning it, it's fine. This isn't a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like nootropics, just different foods and things like that were things that I started trying and getting into, just desperate to find something that could really propel me through the day. I'm sure a lot of people, have experience leaning on Adderall for stuff like that or something similar. I know I went through a period where I had a prescription of Adderall. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that was what was really intriguing to me about your story is it seems like you overcame this challenge that a lot of people probably are dealing with right now with a very simple solution. And most people think that it's not that simple, right? Like most people think that, man, I got to change my entire life to feel better, right? Or to take a step forward. So what was it for you that was like, look, I fixed this problem for me. I need to take a step forward and start helping other people fix this problem with IQBAR.
There was a lot of things. There was a confluence of many variables. So, like, one was I was just interested in the brain and psychology and neuroscience, and I just inherently like loved that topic. Then there was the personal experience, like I talked about. I personally experienced how changing a diet helped with cognition. And then, a third variable is I love business. Like I love startups. And I came into like my early career coincided with a time when startups were very cool. Like they weren't always cool. And then they got really cool. Um, Not to say like CPG startups, like it was always tech leaning, the cool factor, but nevertheless, startups period got just cool. Um, and it became less like quote unquote risky or crazy for someone to start a business out of their apartment or whatever. So, and then the last variable would be I had a job. I couldn't see myself doing it for 40, 50 years. And so I was like, okay, if this isn't it, um, that just makes it a lot easier to do your own thing. If you're like, I don't really love this, and now I know, I don't. I tell people like, don't start a company right out of school. You need the juxtaposition of working for someone. What is it like to have a boss? What is it like to work really long hours? What is it like to work in an organization, right? With like middle management and upper management, like all of that's valuable. I think never experiencing that is, in my opinion, a mistake. So I'm glad I did it, but I'd rather do what I'm doing now. So having that juxtaposition is key. So all of those things sort of together aggregated into like, okay, I want to start this thing. And the last variable is, can I do it? Like, can I own it tip to tail from like make it like formulating the product, like actually create the product myself. I'm the guy who makes the product, not outsourcing that. Like I come up with it and make it and figure out how to manufacture it all the way through to like sales and marketing. Can I do all of it, or at least heavily touch all of it? And with a product like this, I could. Whereas I'd had other ideas that was like a website or an app or whatever, and I was like, oh damn, I'm gonna have to go hire a team of developers, and how do I know if they're doing a good job or not, and how do I know if I'm getting screwed or not? And I couldn't own it. So I'm way more interested in things I can like wrap my head around every single step of the process.
That makes sense. I felt similar about Lively Remedies, and again, back in the day when I was kind of in 2014, 2015, I felt the same way. It's like, man, I got this job, but I don't think I can do this forever. And I got into the cannabis and CBD realm, and but it was the same thing. It's like, man, I can't develop anything, but we can make these products. We can definitely get them out to people. We know that they're working. So yeah, I can totally empathize with that and relate. So what has that journey been like for you, man? I mean, obviously solving your problem is a huge thing personally, and overcoming that, starting IQBAR, starting a business is no small task. I mean, when we talk about on this podcast overcoming adversity, and I'm in it. I'm a year into starting my business, and it's like adversity every single day. So, what was that journey like for you?
The same thing. um, I mean, granted, I think start. Well, I don't know. People will take different sides of this argument. Some people say starting a business in a recession or a really crappy macro environment is the best time to start a business. Some people say the opposite. So I don't really know or care. Like, just start it. Don't try and time it. Just whatever. It is what it is. But when I started it, was same deal. It's every day is a grind, and you are putting out fires from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, and that just is what it is. And by the way, that doesn't get better.
Doesn't go away.
No, no, because it's like my favorite quote of all time is this guy Greg LeMond, who is a cyclist, U.S. cyclist, won the Tour de France, and he said, "It never gets easier; you just go faster. It never gets easier; you just go faster." So you just go faster. So you're like the constant is difficulty. You just happen to get better, and therefore that allows you to go faster. You'll always push yourself to that level of difficulty. So, problems you deal with early is like, I need to make a logo. I need to make a website. I need to make an Amazon presence. I need basic packaging design. I need yada, 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 yada. And then what I deal with now is like, we're launching into Costco. Like, what's the like palette configuration, and like, how do we not screw this up? And then how do we expand it to other, you're always a novice. You're always a novice until you aren't, but like, I certainly haven't reached the point where you aren't. So,
Yeah, I don't know
yeah.
that I expect that that's coming anytime soon for me either. And you look at a guy like Elon Musk, he's a novice again. He just took over a social media platform, which he's never done before. But that's a really cool point, man. You're always a novice. I think that that's something that could maybe turn people off. People maybe feel like they need to be the master before they can start a business. So how do you handle that every day, man? I mean, is there something that you do to prepare yourself for, daily battle?
No, like muscle memory, just you do it long enough and your body adapts. You're like, okay, like body and mind adapts. And you're like, I mean, everyone has their own habits, right? Like exercise, you have to exercise. If you don't, you're going to go crazy. So I go for runs, like try to run every day. I'm not successful at it, but most days I'll go for like a 5 mile run. And that's key. Like get a good night's sleep, have a good diet, like all those things, the obvious stuff. I do. Uh, but no, nothing special. I mean, it's sort of like just build the resiliency via doing it long enough. Like if you can just keep doing it, your body gets more adept at withstanding the endurance piece. And yeah, you can sprint for hell. Some people sprint for 10 years, you know. Um, I'm on year 5. We're on closing up year 5, right? So the body is and mind is pretty damn resilient if you put the right things in it and you treat it okay. One thing I don't know how people do is like have kids. People who have kids and do it. Woo. Do you have kids? Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
have
got
2
two.
kids. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how people like you do it. I don't know how people like you do it.
Oh,
Um,
I mean, it doesn't sound too different from what you do. I mean, it's you wake up and take on whatever the day's got for you. I'll tell
yeah.
you, the change in working culture to accepting remote work um, has definitely helped.
Yep.
One thing for me that was um, a very big motivating factor in starting my own business was not wanting to be at an office for 12 hours a day. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not working 12 hours a day. I'm basically working 24 hours a day. But it's those in between moments where before you might go down the hall and talk to somebody and pick their brain. Hey, what are we doing for this? How do we do that? Where now I look over and I see my 9-month old crawling through my office, picking something up, making a goofy noise or something, and it's motivating, man. It's some fuel. I'll tell you that much. I think leaving your kids every day, you have no question what you're working for,
Right. Right.
but out of sight, out of mind is a thing. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, man. I'll tell you that much. And
Well,
there are
imagine
days
having a
where
good, like having the right partner is just massively important.
very big deal. Yeah, absolutely. And there are examples of both sides of that, right? Of people who do have the right partner and are able to be supported and get through it, and others who don't and won't make it. I mean, I think I've seen, I can't say, just countless people saying that having the right partner is a superpower. So I don't know if you're married. Do you married?
Yeah,
You
I'm
have
married.
kids?
Married.
Okay,
No kids.
no kids yet.
But my wife I work with my wife. How about that?
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and that can be either the best move ever or the worst move ever, right?
Yeah, totally see that.
So it's been the best move ever for us though. I think, and I think she thinks too. You got to check in every once in a while. But
Every now and then.
But no, I mean, it's like if you have like vectors of your life where it's like professional, like relationship, social, etc. Like you, for better or worse, streamline that. You combine the professional and the personal. Is that always healthy? No, but it's also not healthy to like lead an entrepreneurial life and then be working all day and then you never see your spouse and then you get home and you're like you don't really want to talk about the day because you're so exhausted, but they want to, like, that's not healthy either. So it's actually, I think it's a really good setup if you can swing it. The other thing too is both parties like have to be good, like it's
Yep.
awkward if they're not. If one person isn't, then it's like, oh, it's weird because it's not nepotistic or whatever, or like, you're not gonna.
How do
It's
you
weird to
give
fire
feedback
your
on
wife.
that?
Yeah, how do you give
Yeah.
feedback? Like that, all that's weird. But if both parties are good, it's like hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't have to give feedback. Like that, we're so in tune, and that's how it is with us. So it's like, again, can be really really good, or probably could suck. I don't know.
Could be a recipe for disaster for sure. I think that's not hard to see at least. But so maybe not a blanket prescription for those out there with entrepreneurial ambitions to include your significant other, but could be. My wife, she's a photographer. She does all of our photography for the company and has helped with some creative stuff. So yeah,
Nice.
we've got a little bit of probably a less lesser involvement than you do, but where we are involved, it works really well.
Yep.
Um, so, man, you are 5 years into your entrepreneurial journey here with IQBAR. I mean, has there ever been a point where your back is against the wall and you're just like, how am I gonna how am I gonna move forward here? Like, how do I not quit right now?
Yeah, I mean, many countless times. Not countless times, but a lot. There's one like crazy anecdote that I'll tell, which is like it's a good story, so I'll tell it.
Yeah.
This was early on. We were producing for CVS, so we got this like massive um, order for like a couple 100,000 bars, and our biggest production date before that was like 30,000 bars. So we're like, holy
Okay.
crap, like this
Yeah.
is insane. Can we even do this? Do we even have enough money to buy the ingredients to make this, to like, and then they weren't going to pay us for 6 months. Or excuse me, they're going to pay 50% in 30 days, the other 50% in 6 months. Luckily, our margin on it was like over 50%. So we would be like effectively break even on the first payment. And then like the profit would come in 6 months, but still absurd payment terms. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we're like, okay, how the hell are we going to do this? And the co-packer we were at couldn't do it. So I think it was like, we had, I think it was like 4 months or 5 months before they told us, they put in the PO 4 or 5 months before we had to deliver on it. So in that period, we had to find a new co-packer, get through all the docs, get all the ingredients to them, and like figure everything out. And we did. And so like month of we're making these bars, right? But we actually, and we take the whole team to the co-packer, like small team. It's like four of us, but and production begins at an absurdly early hour. It was like 5 a.m. or something. So it's like pitch black. We're driving in like my Nissan to the place. It's like bumping tunes. We're all fired up. We get there. We watch the bars mix and then slab and then it's sliced and it go into the flow wrapper, which gets the wrapper on it. And it's like everything looks awesome. We're like high fiving each other. We're taking videos of it. Like it was like a glorious moment. And then the guy comes up to me, and taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Hey, Will, we got a problem. Like the wrappers aren't sealing."
Oh no.
And this was like a make or break for the company, right?
Yeah.
Um, he's like, "Yeah, the wrappers aren't sealing." And I was like, okay, what do you like? Can you make them seal?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like,
Here.
yeah, and the rapper, like the guy who was the sales rep for the rapper company, just so happened to be there because he thought it was going to be this epic moment too of like he was high fiving, and then I was like, look, man, like your rappers aren't sealing, and then we were like, all right, increase the pressure, like do this, do that, and nothing worked. So like we are just like, we're like, okay, just stop, like stop, because all the product's going to be ruined, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not sealing, yada yada. So that was like one of those moments. You're like, whoa, it all might just come crashing down. It all might fall apart in front of our eyes here. But so yeah, I think it's part of you wants to just like crumble, and then the other part's like snap into action mode. And then I was like,
Yep.
all right, I need like 5 packaging suppliers. Like, give me all their numbers. Just call all of them. And we're like, hey, I need this. I need it in a week. Can you do it? No. Cool. Hang
Of
up.
course.
Call the next person. I need it. Can you do it in a week? No. Well, finally, someone's like, yeah, maybe. Like, maybe. Like, send me
We'll
the
take it.
designs, this, that. I was like, okay. Anyway, we get someone to make the wrappers, get them there a week later. We rerun a week later and wrapper seal and get it all out the door. It costs us money. Like we had to
Oh yeah.
throw away a bunch of product, and it was not. It was very painful. But that's probably the moment where it was like, you know, it was one moment, one thing happened. There's a bunch of other moments that are like like it might be a period of time where it's just super painful and it's more protracted. Um,
Yeah.
but that was
Makes
one where it
sense.
was like one day
Right
it could
here.
all fall apart in front of our eyes.
Well, and as someone who's been involved in finding co-packers and manufacturers and stuff, finding a co-packer for that in 4 to 5 months was no small task. I mean, I've
Totally.
been on projects where we were trying to find a new co-packer for something for over 18 months, and the folks we kept going to just couldn't get it right. And so, totally, man, being able to do that in 4 to 5 months is wild. So to have you get to that point and then like, oh no, this might fall apart. Wow, I can imagine the anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I don't, not to beat my own chest or whatever, but it's like, yeah, like
Hey,
I think some people will fall apart at that moment.
yeah,
Um, but
I'm
I
sure
didn't,
some
we didn't.
have.
Yeah. But then you do it, like I said, like it's like the muscle memory thing. Like that happens. Then like the next bad thing happens. It's not as bad as that. And you're like, well, I got past
Right,
that, you know? And yeah, you deal with enough fires, and fires become oddly like commonplace. You're like, oh, like
right,
what's another fire, you know? So you kind of become like numb to them in a good way.
yeah.
You just treat them like any other problem, and it's less like it's more expect. You almost expect it, and if you do expect it, then it's not the worst thing when it happens.
Right. Yeah, no, I can totally relate with that. Man, I'll sit here and say I hope that doesn't ever happen to me, but I don't know that that's a reality. I think
I'm
eventually
sure. I'm
those,
sure you have some horror story, like manufacturing horror stories of your own.
well, and most of mine come from experience prior to Life Leaf, and so the brand that I was working on before this, I was a VP of Ops, and we were trying to take on a lot, and it was still CBD hemp. We did get into CVS, so I was was kind of laughing along with what you were talking about with their terms because that was something that we dealt with as well, and it was just um, a very big eye opener because I think that most people from the outside in getting into a store like that, that's the win, right?
Right.
That's the perceived win. It's like, oh man,
Right.
you're in CVS, you're in Costco, and most people don't realize like that's actually when the challenge begins.
Yeah.
Now the hard part starts because now you not only have to go through hell in some cases, like you're talking about there, to get the product produced and delivered, but then you have to sell through,
Yeah.
and that's not cheap. or necessarily easy.
Yep.
Getting the right placements, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean that's really one of the big reasons why with LifeLeaf we decided to be a direct to consumer brand. Definitely not an easy thing either. Much slower, I'd say, as far as growth goes.
Yep.
But I do feel like we're building a foundation that's a little bit more sustainable and solid than what we had done in the past with B2B growth. So, I mean, what have you experienced with that? Is your company primarily B2B?
No.
Okay,
So Amazon's our biggest part of our business.
gotcha,
Then retail, brick and mortar, and then our website.
gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, we were Amazon for. I guess you can't do Amazon, right? Because it's CBD.
I can, and we did for a little bit. The problem with that is we have to call ourselves a hemp product, which it's CBD derived from hemp, so that's
Yeah.
accurate. But everybody who's not a CBD product but calling themselves a hemp product, we all look the same, even
Right.
though we're not,
Right.
right? So there's other products out there. Just kind of I guess a consumer tip for the listeners. If you're on Amazon and you're looking for a CBD product, you're going to find a whole bunch of colorful products that look like their label was designed by word art, and they're going to say they've got hundreds of thousands of milligrams in this product, and that's not CBD. They can make you think it is, but it's not. It's hemp seed oil. So
Mhm.
hemp seed oil is not the same as hemp oil or CBD oil. So yeah, that's the reason we've actually not really gone deep into the Amazon channel yet. Hopefully, Amazon opens up a path for legitimate CBD brands to be on there. But there is a way, we were listed on there and there's other CBD brands on there. It's just very, very difficult to stand apart from the non legitimate products and brands that are out there. And that's probably a problem for a lot of people in a lot of ways. I mean, what is the competition like for IQBAR? I mean, what has that been like for you?
I mean, it's very competitive, but you are immune to a lot of the D to C woes of of late. You know, the iOS stuff, and not entirely immune, but just it's a lot better. Just because
Right.
Amazon is a walled garden of its own data, and um, so yeah, I mean, Amazon has always from the early days been our biggest channel,
Okay.
and we really rode like the keto wave early on, and then just established a presence, and it's stayed pretty big. Um, but the, honestly, like for us, being omni-channel is pretty important, and we set very aggressive growth goals for ourselves. Like we try to double every year, which is insane. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So especially if you don't like, it's insane without a ton of money. It gets
Right.
even more insane. So you're like, okay, we need to be efficient and double. I mean, that's how are you going to do that? You can't really do that, in my opinion, if you're not going omni-channel. And really, once you get into like the later stages, you want to get to 25 to 30 million bucks, let's say,
Right.
from 13 million. You need brick and mortar, like you just do. I mean, there's no how else are you going to turn on 10, 12, 13 million dollars? Like you need Costco or Sam's or BJ's or some combo, Whole Foods, HEB, Publix, etc. So yeah, that's just there is no. I mean, there are. I guess technically are other ways you could do international or whatnot, but it's just like that is in my opinion the right way for us. But that's because we set these crazy goals. It's not necessarily, and certainly not for everyone, the best move to do that.
Right.
You know, we're just yeah. I mean, we're trying to grow really quickly. I mean, part of it is like the goal is to exit the business at some point, and a huge determinant of the value of the business is how fast you're growing. So you kind of have to grow fat, like 75% plus, to be high growth, quote unquote,
Yeah.
and then that puts you in a different tier of value.
So then, how in a highly, highly competitive field there, How has IQBAR been able to differentiate from some of the other competitors?
There's like the ostensible way we're different, and then what's actually more what makes us different, like in reality, in terms of consumer purchasing practices. The ostensible one is just like IQ, brain, good for your brain nutrients in the product. That is a unique angle. Hadn't really been done in bars. But what we learned over time is that our ability to thread the dietary needle across keto, plant protein, vegan more broadly, and then just like clean label. So sort of paleo friendly would be another way of putting that last one, is what allows us to win. And I would say actually a really big variable too is cost. Like people always poo poo the cost thing, or they're like, make a premium product and people will pay a premium price. Like that's a myth.
Yeah,
That's a myth in bars, at least.
I agree.
Like people will not pay more than X for a bar. Like, I mean, I guess some will, but you will never scale massively.
Right.
You need to be able to hit a certain price point if you want to sell at Walmart, at Costco, at fill in the blank. And you're kidding yourself if you think you don't. So uh, so much of the nuances and like how do I make this great thing that hits the right unit economics such that I can sell for X on shelf. And
Okay.
um, so many people like don't pay enough attention to that, in my opinion.
No, I'd say that's accurate. Even and that, I'm a numbers guy, so getting into the cogs and the margins and all that kind of stuff was kind of natural for me. But in having conversations with other folks in CPG, just in general, it definitely gets downplayed. It's almost like the chores that you don't want to do,
Yeah,
but that's your key, you know.
yeah,
And
that's
you said
everything.
pricing, but it's more than pricing, right? It's margin, because even if you have a good price, if it's not profitable, it's not sustainable. You're gonna lose eventually,
Well,
right?
that's inherent to it. It's you have to hit that price and be profitable. Like build
Right.
in whatever 50+%.
Yeah, because if you're gonna sell and invest in all of that product for CVS, and basically scale up to a volume that you've never been at before, cash flow becomes a big problem there. Because, like you said, like you got to
Well,
have
that's a whole
employees.
other thing, right? There's like the
Yeah,
unit economics, and then there's cash flow. Totally separate challenge. I mean, they're related, but totally separate,
totally
right?
separate.
You can have a great margin and terrible cash flow. So I mean, we've had to deal with that too. Um, and if you're not raising these big venture rounds, you are going to have cash flow problems. So you're gonna have to get really smart about how to solve that. And there's a lot of like smart, right, posting and about this of using certain credit cards and like we use this one service called Ampla or have used them, that's been useful. But yeah, I mean, you need some way to smooth out your cash flow. You're going to make stuff, you're going to get billed for it, and then you're not going to get your cash conversion cycle, aka people paying you for that stuff, not hit until will not hit sooner than your bill is due. So what do you
Right.
do about it? And yeah, some people will just raise money, right? They'll like raise dilutive capital, and that, of course, is the most expensive way to do it. Equity is always the most expensive. Um, but there's not that many good alternatives in many cases. Like you can't get a line of credit. No bank will give you that because you need two profitable tax returns to get a line of credit from, let's say, Bank of America. No startup on earth has that, right? I mean, some do, but for all intents and purposes, none do.
Not really. Yeah.
So you're gonna have to turn to like kind of weird, super high interest options. So it's tough. I mean, there's no obvious answer.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'm living it right now. um, so again, kind of drawing back to some of the themes of the podcast. We talk about natural remedies a lot. Now, obviously, IQ Bar is you know, your baby, right? This is the thing that like it solved your problems personally, and then you've been able to get this out there for a lot of people. You mentioned running as well. I mean, what other natural remedies would you say you incorporate into your daily routine, or not necessarily daily, just your routine at all?
I mean, it's kind of that. It's like
Yeah.
sleep, exercise, nutrition. I'm not, I don't meditate. Like, I don't journal. I don't, writing stuff like on LinkedIn or otherwise, I enjoy. It's that's to me is sort of meditative or
Hmm.
journaling like, but I don't do those things explicitly.
Yeah.
Um, I know some people do, and that has benefits for them. I don't. I like for me, it really is those things, and then staying busy. I think for me, I hate not being busy. Like I psychologically I am in a not great spot if I just have an idle mind.
Yeah.
Whatever, what's that saying? The idle mind's the devil's workshop or whatever. So
Yep.
um, as long as I stay busy, I'm actually psychologically in a better place, not worse place. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm so busy, I'm like stressed." That's psychologically bad. For me, it's like I'm so busy, and even I'm somewhat stressed, and I'm psychologically in a good place. Um, yeah, maybe I'm different than other folks in that respect. I don't know, but that just is what it is for me. And then yeah, the
That
other
might be
stuff
what
is
makes you an entrepreneur.
yeah, but I also think that's teachable. Or like
Yeah.
you're you can teach your body to be like that. I don't know that I was always like that, but I've like adapted to become like that.
Is that
So
something you think happened as a result of becoming an entrepreneur?
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, the one thing that I'm very fascinated by, and I can't say I put a lot of thought into it, but it's something I think about, here and there as examples come up. There's so many people out there that I think would make great entrepreneurs, and they won't make the jump. I mean, so for you, was there like a jump off moment where it's like, look, all right, I got to start this company. I'm just going to do it. Or what were the set of circumstances that came together that made sense for you, or motivated you or inspired you, whatever it was that took you beyond that threshold that most people can't get beyond. They need that security of the salary or the benefits, or whatever.
I don't know. That was not hard for me. Like the decision to do it actually wasn't hard. As
Okay.
maybe that sounds weird. Again, I don't have kids.
Yeah, that helps.
I didn't like. I wasn't married. I was like 25, and I was like, okay, I have. I just there what people frame it as this big risky move. As far as I could tell, it was eminently not risky for a variety. Like, what's the risk? You forego a couple years of shitty salary. Like, you're not going to be made. Your salary is going to be the lowest it ever is in your career, and like the earlier on you are anyway. So yeah, the salary slash financial opportunity cost is not high, relatively speaking. You need to figure out a way to survive. So like
Right.
for me, I just had to line all that up, and then I was able to do it. So I lived in my friend's parents' basement for free. Like that
There
was
you go.
how which was weird, right? I didn't even know these people. Very like great people. I'm forever thankful to them. I didn't know them before I really did that, and then I do weird odd jobs. I walked into my boss's office one day, and I was like, look, we both know I'm not super passionate about what I'm doing. We both know I want to do my own thing. I had kind of had discussions like that with him before. Like, what if you cut my salary in half? and then you cut my hours in half. And would you be open to that? Like, and then I'll help you find a new person and train them up, and it'll be because we both know I'm like proficient at my job. What I had done is kind of hard to replace, and there was a decent
Yeah.
learning curve. And so, what do you think about that? And he's like, give me a day. And then he came back a day later. He's like, okay. So I was making half a salary, which was just enough to like survive,
Pay the bills. Yeah.
pay the bills. And here's the killer part about it. Like I was working probably 60, 65-hour weeks, like long weeks.
Yep.
But then when I cut it in half, technically that was on like a 40-hour a week basis. So then in effect, I was like cutting it by like 2/3.
Yeah.
And so I was just working 20 hours a week. That's nothing. Like
No.
you can work a full-time job on top of that. So effectively that like I could survive off of that. I was living for free. And then I could effectively work this full-time job, starting the company. And once I had lined all that up, it was like, why not? Like
Yeah.
why you'd be stupid to not do this? Like what
Yep.
even is the risk? Like let's play it out. What's the worst that could happen? You fail and then get a promotion because everyone's more impressed that you tried to like start this thing. That's the
Yep.
worst case. Pretty good case. So
Learn a lot.
yeah, I guess the like thing maybe a lot of people worry about is not so much that, but the embarrassment factor of like, oh, I tried to
Yeah.
do this thing, I fell on my face, now I look like an idiot. That
Yeah.
maybe that's a bigger impediment, but for whatever reason, that was never much of a thing for me. I don't know why.
That's interesting you say that, man, because not that it was that simple for me, but you know, the reason I was able to decide to start Life Leaf is because we were living um, with my wife's grandmother who has dementia. So we're taking care of her to keep her out of a nursing home, but we don't have a rent payment or a mortgage payment, right? So it's huge.
Yeah,
It's such a big deal. And for me, it was kind of the same thing. It was like, well, I know this product, I know this industry, I've got this opportunity with minimal bills. Um, why would I not? It would almost be irresponsible not to. You know, is what it felt like. So maybe that's what it takes. Maybe for someone to become an entrepreneur, they need that set of circumstances that just can't be denied. But
yeah.
it does
This is
seem,
why, Sue. This is why I'm like
yeah,
so impressed by people who, because again, I'm not even. I didn't even think it was that brave, quote unquote.
yeah,
What's like actually brave is like certain people who are like, I'm making 300 grand a year. I'm making 400 grand a year. I'm gonna like ditch my swanky Manhattan condo or apartment or whatever. I'm gonna forego that big salary. I'm gonna like maybe break up with my girlfriend who is into that lifestyle and not willing to adapt, like whatever that,
right,
like that whole setup is like, and someone who is still like, yep, I'm gonna do it. That's badass.
that's a leap
Um,
of faith.
that's like your opportunity cost is very, very real there. So people
Yeah,
who do that, I'm like, whoa, that's impressive. What I did,
yeah.
not risky in my opinion.
Well, it's I think it's cool that you see it that way, because so many people would disagree with you. Just on the failure alone, not the opportunity cost, but you know, I think a lot of people are intimidated just by the possibility of failure, and you know, like you said, the embarrassment. Oh, I tried this, it didn't work. It's neat that you didn't even see those things, and makes sense why you've been able to be resilient and successful. Um, I mean, I heard this one time that made a lot of sense to me, and has actually helped me with my mentality as far as approaching fear and intimidation. You know, a professional snow skier, or you know, somebody who can go up and ski down a double black diamond or something like that. Those people are darting down that mountain, and they are not thinking about every tree that they could hit. All they're doing is following the open path, right? if they were thinking about every tree that they could hit, they're eventually going to hit one of those trees, and it's not going to end well. So I was just like, man, that is such a great perspective, and it seems like that's what you have. You know, you're going down this double black and dodging trees, and you're like, well, I mean, they're there, but I didn't see that as a risk to hit that tree. So that's neat, man. I think that that's probably unique and special.
But what are the trees if you stay in that job? They don't look like trees, but they're trees. Like
Oh yeah,
we, sort of languishing around for a couple years, not getting promoted, not generating new skills, um, not learning rapidly, not being passionate about something. That's a tree, in my opinion. People just don't paint that as a tree. They're like, oh, that's life.
yeah,
It's no, that's a tree.
yeah.
And
I agree.
you hit it face on. So, like, I view those as trees. So it's just swapping. It's not as if entrepreneurship has more trees. It's just different. It's more like obvious trees or
Yeah,
appearance trees.
yeah. That's a good point. Oh man, that's I love that. I love that you've got that perspective and that you've been able to do what you've been able to do. I'm looking here at the IQ bars and your different products that you have on your website. What was the first one? What was the product, the formula? You know, is it, if you even have the original up there, that sparked everything?
We started with three SKUs. We started with they were like totally different. We've iterated so many times, it's insane. But
Right.
I think it was cacao, almond, sea salt, blueberry, walnut, and matcha chai hazelnut.
It's a
Those were
lot.
the first
There's a
three.
lot going on there.
Yeah, like, and then it was like, very Whole Foodsy or like artisan, and then you learn, you're like, oh, cacao, almond, sea salt. No one knows what cacao is. Like, call it chocolate sea salt. Um, yeah, you just pick up on stuff, and you're really idealistic in the beginning, and you learn over time where to innovate and where to not try to innovate. But yeah, those were the first three, and then we just sort of iterated on top. And how do we create variety packs? Um, that was a major unlock for us, was the power of variety packs. Like variety packs outsell single flavor SKUs by a lot.
That makes sense.
So yeah, how do you craft really good assortments was another big one. But yeah, I mean the product, man, that never ends. The product evolution, especially
Right.
through like COVID times, supply chain constraints. It's like you better have redundancy. You better be able to swap in ingredients that don't change your labels. That I I think like at the outset I thought that would end, and it never does. And for a while I've accepted that it never does.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you like you said, you learn so much. You know, I can relate to that as well. In this industry, there was a specific topical SKU that we were working with our previous brand, and we were trying to do exactly what you just described, which was switch out ingredients without having to change the label. And that was actually one of the biggest reasons why another co-packer was not able to reproduce what we had originally come up with. And it was really frustrating, man, because it was a big co-packer, and I'm sitting here going, you guys are making all this product for these big time brands, and you're going to tell me that I brought in a formula that you can't make? That doesn't make sense to me, because I've got a guy over here who's in a much smaller lab who is making it, and he's doing a darn good job. But it's amazing how some of those, even, I guess it's hard to explain, right? But you've got some ingredients that are the same ingredient technically, but one's more generic than the other, and it depends on who makes it and what it is, and um, they can make all the difference. It can be technically called the same thing,
Yeah.
but because somebody else made it, or because it was whatever the variable is, it doesn't work.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
one cacao powder is wildly different than another cacao bean. Might
Right.
have the same nutritionals. One's from the Netherlands, the other's from the Congo or whatever. Like
Yeah.
wild difference.
Yeah.
Same words on the label.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, those are the, I guess, the snakes in the grass, if you will, right? That are, just kind of out there. They're not necessarily problems that are easy to see, things that are easy to kind of plan around. But when you have to deal with them, you have to deal with them. So I mean, as you've gone through your product evolutions, you've mentioned a lot of iteration. I see, you guys have beverage mixes now. I mean, what caused you to go off and to venture outside of the bars themselves?
Well, I always viewed IQBAR, which will become a new parent company,
Okay.
as a brain and body nutrition company. Bars just happen to be a form factor and the form factor we started in. But it's just really a vessel to deliver certain nutrition. That's it. Could have been a cookie, could have been a couple other things, but it's just big market, good delivery mechanism, shelf stable, unit economics work, yada yada yada. Cool, let's do it via a bar. But there are other occasions. That whole principle of brain and body nutrition and um, thinking well and uh, having an active body with a lot of energy every day, day in and day out. That applies to other occasions throughout the day. So one of them is hydration, right? Hydrating impacts the way you think. It impacts the way your body can move, and how you feel, your psychology. That's another occasion that still falls within that umbrella. So I'm interested in hitting different occasions throughout the day and like helping people address that occasion. So that's one piece. Then there's a whole checklist it has to cover off on too, which is like, is it a big market? Um, do the unit economics work? Can we create a differentiated product in this category? Is it coherent with our other product line? Can we make it dietarily coherent? In other words, like the bars, keto, vegan, clean label. Can we make a hydration product that's keto, vegan, clean label?
Hmm.
Um, check, 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 check. Cool. Let's pursue this.
Let's
And
do it.
then,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there's another, like, we're interested in coffee too. It's a different occasion.
Yep.
There's like satiation, aka bars, hydration, mix, and then caffeination. And then that'll be like IQ Joe. Um, and that's a different occasion, right? Highly relevant to your brain. Caffeine is a nootropic. Like we all know this by virtually everyone drinks coffee in the morning. Um, myself included. So that's another thing we're really, so you can apply the same principle across different. Now, the risk, of course, is losing focus. You don't want to do all that and then lose focus because, I mean, our ACV or our penetration into the market for bars is still super low, all things considered. So you could make the argument, well, just push that to the nth degree. And I actually think there's a way to do it and platformize yourself such that you minimally degrade focus and round out your brand more and are able to upsell different things to the same consumer. And like there's a Venn diagram, right? There's people who like bars and coffee, and then there's some people
Yep.
who only like bars, and then there's some people who
Yep.
only like coffee. Same with hydration. You want to get those people around their perimeters too, if you can. So it's upselling and expanding to touching new consumers. Um, but I don't know that there's like an absolute right answer, right? Some people have done that platformization well. Many other people have done the dead on focus one form factor thing well. I think it just depends on you and your brand.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And I definitely relate with how you described that. I mean, we're trying to accomplish a lot of that with LifeLeaf, in different ways, right? Being well rounded from, a sleep gummy to a skin repair topical, right? So it's just, it is, there is a risk of going and spreading yourself too thin and getting into areas that you don't know very well. But yeah, I mean, I think that once you get going with something like with IQ Bar, I mean, it's almost impossible to hold yourself back, isn't it? I mean, it's like, dang, what can we do to make this thing better?
Yeah, there is like that too, which is novelty is fun, right? It's
Oh
fun for
yeah.
you and it's fun for consumers.
Oh yeah.
So it's that is a real factor. Whether or not what the business implications are for that, that just is a factor. We like as entrepreneurs, you like creating new stuff. And then if you like create one thing and then you're just like, oh, I'm gonna spend the next 10 years just selling that thing to new doors or whatever, like that kind of sucks, in my opinion. So yes, you do that, but it's kind of cool to like it's like almost like mini side projects in tandem with that, which are new product lines.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned IQBAR. You know, you guys have some big plans then. If you're gonna kind of evolve into these different categories and kind of did you say you're gonna have like a parent company?
Just like we will become IQ Co probably or something
Okay,
like that. And then
gotcha.
under that will be IQ Bar, IQ Mix, IQ Joe, IQ this, IQ that. Um, which is an interesting. It's kind of like Life Aid, you know that company that has like Fit
Mm-hmm.
Aid, Immunity Aid. So
Yep.
there's a bunch of brands that do that convention, and so yeah, how
So
you do
then,
that
all right.
tastefully. You know, it's actually another good example. Theragun. You know, Theragun's a product.
Yep.
Now it's Therabody. So then it's like Theragun by Therabody. That allows them to go into other categories. What does most people recognize? Theragun, because it's the number one product, and but
Yep.
it gives them license to expand.
Absolutely. No, and that was again one of the things with LifeLeaf that we were considering as well. That's why we're not LifeLeaf CBD. You know, we want to get into um, other cannabinoids, other natural ingredients that can be helpful and that can be remedies. You know, so that's um, eventually I think that that's where you do go if you're an entrepreneur and you get into it, you get down the rabbit hole, right? You know, there's now after for example, after my career started out with commercial real estate sales and then went into lending product management and then went into, marketing and then went into operations. Now I'm so far down this path here with LifeLeaf that it's like I can't even entertain the idea of something else right now because there's too much meat on this bone, right? There's too much left to do. There's too much left to explore. There's too much left to
I
too
mean,
many
there's
stones left unturned.
infinite.
Yeah, really is. It really is, and it's funny because I think a lot of people assume, oh well, that's been done, so I can't do it. And I'm like, have you heard of Liquid Death? They're
Yeah.
reselling. They're selling water, right? Like, there's still new brands coming out that are selling water. As long as people are able to do that, you can pretty much sell anything as long as you can figure out a unique way to do it. Um, so I mean, as you've gone, you mentioned you're 5 years here into your journey with IQ Bar, and it sounds like you've got plenty of ambitions for where you guys, what's on the horizon for you. What are your biggest challenges right now? Not necessarily as a company, but like for you specifically.
Um, I mean, team management is always a big one. Like that, I think that's the toughest actually aspect of all of entrepreneurship is how do you find great people, like motivate them. Uh, how do they feel ownership over the company in some approximation of the ownership you feel over the company? Like, that's always challenge. I mean, that challenge will never go away. So that's always one. That's one I think a lot about. Um, Cash, raising cash is just a reality of what we do, and we're super efficient. And even us, like we're closing around right now, which will be huge for us. Um, keep like I think the time constraint thing is good and bad. We have these revenue goals we want to hit, and in order for us to hit those, we have to do a lot in a really compressed amount of time. And so that's a challenge. That's a stressful, thing. Meaning like we have to get XYZ retailer in this many doors by this date, or like we're not going to do it. And it's like some of that's outside of your control and some of it's in your control. And that's the thing about brick and mortar. It's so chunky. Like the revenue is like
Yeah.
comes in these like big chunks, and it's very different than, of course, than online, where it's like, okay, you can have like this linear growth. Um, so that's challenging, like forecasting that out and making sure we have a clear line of sight to hit the goals that we want to hit. Um, you know, staying hungry, keeping
Oh yeah.
managing your own psychology. It's always a challenge, but I don't know. Candidly, that one's never been as. Hey, you go through periods where you're like, "Damn, this is hard," and I'm
Yeah.
semi burnt out or even fully burnt out, and then you get back on the horse, and um, it never lasts. If you can just keep going, it kind of fizzles out, and you're back at it. But can't say that's not challenging. Can't say that's not a gut punch from time to time.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean those are some of them.
So for you know a newer entrepreneur like myself, I can't say younger because I think I'm a couple years older than you, but um, what is it like? How do you get yourself back up on the horse? Like you're fully burnt out, man. Like you're in this, you're in just the gauntlet, right? Thing after thing after thing has gone wrong, which I can totally relate with right now. How is it that you pick yourself back up on that horse and you don't quit? I mean, I kind of asked that question before, but I want to ask that again because you mentioned that's just specifically in the same breath as these other challenges, which people management, time management, motivation management, money management, all of that is a beast and it doesn't go away. It's like what gets you back up on that horse, man?
I think it's a variety of things. I think one thing I like to do, which is certainly not, I didn't invent this concept, but is like put pressure on yourself in by way of like public declaration, or at least declaration to like make it aware, make your goals, uh, make people aware of your goals,
Okay,
and then
there you go.
you're like almost tee yourself up to be motivated by not wanting to be embarrassed. It's like it's kind of like declaring, on Facebook or whatever, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. Like that's pretty damn
Yeah,
embarrassing if you don't. You just told everyone you would. So
yeah,
it like put yourself in that, put your own back against the wall,
yeah.
and that actually gets better results out of yourself. So it's kind of like masochistic in a way, but it's effective.
No, it's
It's
true though.
effective.
I agree with that, and
Um,
I've done that before, right? I've actually I've gone on Instagram and my story and set a goal. It's like, hey guys, I'm gonna run this distance in this period of time, and then I log all my runs and then fall short, and it's not fun, man. Like because whether other people are paying attention to that or not, you perceive that they are.
yeah,
Right?
right, right,
You've placed that pressure squarely on yourself as if they are. So that's cool that you say that. I think that some people would maybe lean away from that.
right. I think it's depends on what, like, if you're old enough. I'm 31. Excuse me, 32. Just turned 32.
Oh
Um,
man, catches you, doesn't it?
yeah, like this month I turned 32. You have enough data points where, like, what variables get the best out of you, and some of them might surprise you. Like some of them might not be all that savory, right? Or
Right.
like things that you're proud of or things you want to talk about, whatever it is, a certain number of variables net out, like those in produce the most out. And you can like look at that and be like, okay, like that's like I remember my first job, I had a really tough boss, and in the moment I was like, damn, this guy's really tough. Like I was like almost resentful about it at points, and then I'll look back on it and I'm like, whoa, that guy got the most he could have gotten out of me. That was highly effective. Whether I liked it or not, he got the most out of me. So Then there's like a bunch of other conversations of like, is that the right way to do it? I don't know, and I don't really care. The point is, you got the most out of me. So yeah, it's like what everyone should just look at themselves, because I think it's different for each person, and like, okay, what variables got the most out of me, and do that. And then so for me, it's what I described earlier of put your own back against the wall. I mean, I do other weird stuff too. I call like visualize um like the future,
Yeah.
what are you working towards, like in very, very specific terms, like literally what do you look like, picture it really vividly and specifically, and then you're like, that for me, for whatever reason, is more motivating than more like vague goals, like, oh, I want to have a nice house or a nice car, or be able to not look at prices on a restaurant menu or whatever it is. um get like really specific, like, no, I want this house in this town, and I want to go to this specific restaurant. I want to get this like filet mignon there, and I want, because I really like that, and that, you know what I mean. And for whatever reason, like getting ultra specific there of like daydreaming. So I'll daydream a lot when I run. That's like my daydreaming, and like, and then you get done for the run, and you're like, boom, ready to go.
Yep.
That's
No,
just
that's a that,
me.
no. I'm with you. I went for a run last night. I did about 4 miles at midnight. Um, if you've not done a night run, I highly recommend it.
Oh, dude, I night run all the freaking time.
Yeah, right
Love it.
on, man. Right on. And it is kind of counterintuitive almost. I think people think like, man, like I'm already tired and ready to go to bed at midnight. Like I don't want to go make myself more tired. It's like, no, but that's not it. It's not that, right? It's you get out there, it is the meditation, and your blood is pumping, the oxygen is pumping, and that creates the thoughts in your head that are productive, and starting to think like, what if I do this, or how do I do that? And you naturally problem solve in that place, or at least I do. Um, and it's so hard. It
And
really is
even
hard
if
to.
you don't problem solve, you like become happier. Like even if it's stupid and you never, even if the idea you come up with is dumb and you never ultimately do it, you coming up with that idea in that moment makes you happier. You're like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then you're like, hell yeah. And then it motivates you to do a bunch of other stuff. And then you never actually do that idea that you had while you're running. It doesn't matter. It elevated your psychology so that you could keep pushing.
Absolutely. It fired those ideas. It fired just thoughts in your head in general. Now I love to hear that, man. And that, that might be a good place for us to, kind of wind it up, bring everything full circle. Because natural remedies is something that I'm super passionate about. It's not just CBD. CBD is something that I definitely call a natural remedy, but it is things like going out for a run, even when you don't want to. I think that's sometimes the most important time to do it. And just being able to fuel your life with these things and not need to rely on man, I'm gonna have a beer when I get home, or man, I got to take an Adderall to get going to work, or I've had a bad day, so I'm gonna go get myself a big sub sandwich for lunch. These things are so easy to like fall back on, and just to take that instant gratification of, when it may seem less desirable to go for a midnight run, but man, is it so much more productive and uplifting. I don't want it to just sound like, oh, I've accomplished something, so that's why I'm uplifted. It really is just the fact that you've gone out and you've pumped your body up, right,
Yep.
and created these healthy natural chemicals inside your body. And it's hard to explain. I mean, I guess the best way to do it is start running, stop, see how you feel, and then pick it up again.
Yeah.
I've done that a couple of times where I'll take just a couple of months off. I won't run, not intentionally, but I'll catch myself like, man, I haven't run in a while. I need to get back out there. And when I do, it's instantly feel that same return. Um, So yeah, man. I mean, we've talked a lot about the natural remedies that you created with IQBAR and some of the stuff that you do. I mean, is there anything like any thoughts or anything that you'd like to just kind of leave people with?
No, not really. I've kind of just brain dumped all my secrets and tricks. But
We've got them
no,
all.
I mean just the cliched stuff of. I mean, I, the thing I'll most harp on. I think if we look back at our conversation, I think people still don't get the most is that risk thing, which is reprice your perception of risk. Like you almost certainly are miscalculating risk in your own life, and it's almost certainly holding you back from doing certain things that when you are 70 years old you will have wished you would have done, and you can just not generate that regret by simply repricing risk, which is, by the way, just a totally rational move anyway. You should reprice it even regardless of that, because you should accurately price things in your life.
Of course.
So I think that's like, if I could harp more on any one thing, it would be like actually objectively do an appraisal of what where true risk lies, and adjust accordingly.
Love it, man. I love it. Reprice your risk. I've never heard somebody say that, but I'm gonna borrow that if applicable. Um, well, Will, man, it's been really really good talking to you. I've really enjoyed this conversation and learning about just your journey with IQ Bar and what led to that, what it's been like so far. It's super motivating for someone like me who's definitely in a similar situation to where you were now 4 years ago. Um, but hopefully inspiring and motivating to some other folks out there that'll be watching and listening to this. I know you do a great job on LinkedIn of talking to folks, and that's how we connected. Hopefully, this will propel that even further, right? I mean, that's ultimately what the passion for natural remedies is all about: is spreading that wealth, so to speak, and helping others achieve what they're trying to achieve. Feel better today. That's why that's our slogan and what we go by is, there's a lot of things people are trying to accomplish, and what you were trying to accomplish with IQ Bar, you wanted to feel better doing
Yeah.
the things that you had to do every day. And so I hope that folks have listened to this and taken some of those things from you to help them feel better today. I really hope you guys will go try IQ Bar. It's eatiqbar.com. But is there anything specifically you'd like to plug with your company or any other shout outs you want to give?
No, no. Follow me on LinkedIn for random musings, philosophical musings. Yeah, eatiqbar.com, just IQBAR on Amazon, store locator on our website.
Right on.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, sir. I really gratefully appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll get to chat again, man.
Yeah,
This
we
was
should
good.
do we should do it again. You should chop this up and just throw just nuggets out on social media. I'm like looking
I
at the
will.
clock, 1:17. I'm like, damn, is someone gonna make it to an hour and still be like engaged? Like maybe,
About
hopefully.
10%. About 10% actually make it all the way through. Maybe a little less than that. But yeah, we'll chop it up. We'll make sure we get a few easily consumed snippets out there so that the value doesn't get lost on the length. But definitely
I
need to
like
do this
long
again.
form though. By the way, like I
Me too.
prefer it. I'll listen to entire 3 hour podcasts.
I will too.
Yeah,
I love just taking in a good conversation. I mean, that's a natural remedy in my opinion. Is just listening to a
yeah.
good conversation or taking part in a good conversation. So again, that's why I'm grateful for your time today, man. And I know that we're both running, as fast as we can and hoping not to lose our head in the process of it. So when I get the chance to sit down like this and have a longer form conversation with someone like yourself, it really is a treat. So I really appreciate it, man. And like I said, let's make it happen again.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Well, thank you all for listening to the Better by Nature podcast. I really hope that you guys will tune into the next one. Subscribe, like all the fun stuff for social media. It doesn't cost you anything. Help us gain some awareness and some following, and definitely go follow Will. He's got some excellent LinkedIn content. Love it, motivating, and sometimes just entertaining. So appreciate you guys, and y'all feel better today.